For 9 years, the boy touched his ear. Every doctor said the same thing. There is nothing we can do. His father, the billionaire, spent millions, flew across the world, and begged specialists to look again. They all shrugged. Then a maid noticed something no one else did, and what she found inside that child's ear will leave you speechless. Raymond Taylor was a billionaire. He had private jets, mansions, and more money than most people see in a lifetime. However, his son Kelvin was born deaf. Kelvin is now 9 years old and has never heard a sound. Raymond tried everything. Johns Hopkins, Switzerland, Tokyo. Specialists who charged thousands per hour. They ran tests, scans, procedures. All of them said the same thing. Irreversible. Accept it. But Raymond couldn't accept it because Kelvin was all he had left. His wife died giving birth to Kelvin. So Raymond kept searching, kept spending, kept begging God for an answer. What he didn't know, the answer wouldn't come from a hospital. It was going to come from the woman he just hired to clean his mansion. Priscilla was a maid, 28 years of age. No degree, no credentials, just a woman trying to pay her grandmother's nursing home bills. But she noticed something about Kelvin that every specialist had missed. Something in his ear, something dark. And one evening while Raymond was away, she made a decision that would either save that boy's life or destroy her own. What happened next? I need you to see it for yourself. Before we continue, hit subscribe, like this video, and tell me in the comments where in the world you're watching from. I believe this story found you today for a reason. The Taylor mansion stretched across 40 acres of Connecticut land. From the outside, it looked like a dream. Georgian columns, windows that sparkled in the sunlight, gardens trimmed to perfection. But inside, silence. Not the peaceful kind. Not the kind that feels like rest. This silence was heavy, thick, like something had died and no one had buried it yet. Servants moved through the hallways without speaking. Their footsteps were soft, careful. They'd learn quickly. Mr. Taylor liked things quiet. No music played in that house, no television noise, no laughter bouncing off the walls, just silence. And somewhere in that silence, a father was drowning. Raymond Taylor sat in his study most evenings, staring at the family portrait above the fireplace. There she was, Cynthia, his wife, her smile frozen in oil paint, her eyes still bright, still alive. Next to her, a younger version of himself, looking hopeful, looking whole, and between them, Kelvin, 3 years old in the portrait. Before Raymond understood that his son would never hear his mother's name, Cynthia died the day Kelvin was born. Complications, the doctors called it. Too much bleeding, too little time. Raymond held her hand while the light left her eyes. She'd been trying to say something. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. Just like their son, Raymond never forgave himself. If he'd chosen a different hospital, if he'd demanded better care, if he'd been paying closer attention, maybe she'd still be here. Maybe Kelvin would be different. The guilt sat on his chest like a stone he couldn't lift. So he did the only thing he knew how to do. He spent money, millions of dollars, the best specialists on earth, flights across oceans, and hotels that cost more per night than most people earned in a month. Every doctor said the same thing. Your son's deafness is congenital. There's nothing we can do. You need to accept this. Accept it. How could he accept that his boy would live in silence forever? How could he accept that Kelvin would never hear his father say, "I'm sorry your mother isn't here"? So Raymond kept searching, kept writing checks, kept hoping that somewhere out there, someone had the answer. He didn't realize the answer wasn't coming from a specialist. It was coming from someone he'd never think to look at twice. Someone who was about to walk through his front door with nothing but faith in her heart and bills she couldn't pay. Her name was Priscilla, and she was about to change everything. Priscilla Adams arrived on a Tuesday morning in October. The sky was gray, the kind of gray that makes everything feel heavier than it should. She stood at the gate of the Hart estate, clutching her bag with both hands, trying to steady her breathing. This was it, her last chance. Back in Newark, her grandmother was lying in a nursing home bed. The bills were piling up on Priscilla's kitchen table like a tower she couldn't stop from growing. 3 months behind. That's what the letter said. If she didn't pay, they'd transfer her grandmother to a state facility. The kind of place where people were forgotten, where no one held your hand, where you became a number instead of a name. Priscilla couldn't let that happen. Her grandmother had raised her, took her in after her parents died in a car accident when Priscilla was 10, fed her when there was nothing in the fridge, and prayed over her when life felt impossible. That woman deserved better than a cold room and strangers who didn't care. So Priscilla took this job at a billionaire's mansion. She didn't care about the fancy address. Didn't care about the wealthy family. She just needed the paycheck. The head housekeeper, Mrs. Garcia, met her at the door. Stern face, sharp eyes, the kind of woman who noticed everything and forgave nothing. "You're Priscilla. Yes, ma'am. You'll clean. You'll stay quiet. You'll keep to yourself." Mr. Taylor doesn't like disruptions, especially around his son. Priscilla nodded. "I understand. Do you?" Because the last girl didn't. She tried to get too friendly with the boy. Thought she could help. She was gone within a week. Priscilla swallowed. "I'm just here to work, ma'am." Mrs. Garcia studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Follow me." As they walked through the mansion, Priscilla kept her eyes down, but she couldn't help noticing things. The silence was so thick it felt alive. The way the other servants moved without speaking, without smiling, the heaviness that hung in the air like fog that wouldn't lift. And then she saw him. A small boy sitting on the marble staircase, arranging toy cars in a perfect line. He didn't look up, didn't acknowledge anyone. His shoulders were hunched, his movements careful, precise. But what caught Priscilla's attention was something else. The way he kept touching his right ear, just briefly, almost like a habit, and the tiny wincing that crossed his face each time he did. Priscilla's chest tightened. She'd seen that look before. She didn't say anything, just kept walking. But her heart whispered something she couldn't ignore. Days passed. Priscilla cleaned floors, wiped windows, and folded linens. She kept her head down like Mrs. Garcia told her, but she couldn't stop watching Kelvin. Every morning, the same routine. The boy would sit alone in the sunroom, surrounded by model airplanes and puzzle pieces. His world was small, contained, safe. No one bothered him there. The other servants avoided him, not out of cruelty, but out of fear. Like his silence was something they might catch. Some whispered that the boy was cursed, that losing his mother at birth had taken his hearing with her. Superstition, that's what it was. But Priscilla saw something different. She saw a desperately lonely child. A boy who sat by the window and pressed his small hand against the glass, watching the world move without him. She saw the way he'd look at his father sometimes when Raymond walked past without stopping and how his little shoulders would sink just a bit lower. She saw how he touched his ear over and over, wincing each time, and no one noticed. Or maybe they'd stopped noticing long ago. One afternoon, Priscilla was dusting the hallway near the sunroom when she saw Kelvin struggling with a model airplane wing. His small fingers couldn't get the piece to fit. Frustration creased his face. She shouldn't interfere. Mrs. Garcia's warning echoed in her mind. But before she could stop herself, Priscilla knelt down and gently took the wing. She fitted it into place with a soft click. Kelvin looked up at her. For a moment, they just stared at each other. Then something happened. The tiniest smile, just a flicker at the corner of his mouth. Priscilla's heart cracked wide open. She smiled back, gave him a small wave. He waved in return. That night, Priscilla lay in her bed thinking about that wave. Such a small thing, but it meant everything. The next morning, she left something on the stairs where Kelvin always sat. A folded paper bird, simple, made from scrap paper she'd found in the kitchen. She didn't wait to see if he'd take it. But the following day, the bird was gone. In its place, a note. 2 words in shaky handwriting. "Thank you." Priscilla pressed that note to her chest and closed her eyes. She whispered into the quiet, "Lord, let me help this child. Show me how." She didn't know it yet, But God was already answering. And the answer would cost her everything she had. Over the next few weeks, something shifted. Priscilla and Kelvin developed their own language. Small things, secret things. She'd leave him candy wrapped in gold foil. He'd leave her drawings of airplanes. She learned his signs, not the formal ones his tutors taught, but the personal ones he'd made up himself. The way he tapped his chest twice meant he was happy. The way he pointed to the sky meant he was thinking about stars. The way he pressed both palms together meant he felt safe, and slowly he started using that last sign around her. Priscilla treasured that more than anything. But not everyone was pleased. One evening, Mrs. Garcia cornered her in the kitchen. "I've seen you with the boy." Priscilla's stomach dropped. "Ma'am, I don't." Mrs. Garcia's voice was sharp as glass. "I warned you. Mr. Taylor has rules. Staff don't get close to Kelvin. I'm not trying to cause trouble. He's just lonely. That's not your concern." Mrs. Garcia stepped closer. "You're here to clean, not to mother that child, not to fix what can't be fixed." Priscilla bit her tongue. Fix what can't be fixed. That's what everyone said. Even here, even in this house where the boy lived, they'd all given up. If Mr. Taylor finds out you've been interfering, you'll be gone. No references, no second chances. Mrs. Garcia's eyes were cold. Think about that. She walked away, heels clicking against the floor like a countdown. That night, Priscilla sat on her bed, staring at the wall. She thought about her grandmother, the bills, and the paycheck she desperately needed. She thought about Kelvin, his lonely eyes, his pain. She thought about the dark things she'd seen in his ear. Mrs. Garcia's words echoed in her mind. Fix what can't be fixed. But what if it could be fixed? What if everyone was wrong? Priscilla picked up her Bible and held it close. "Lord, I don't know what to do. I can't lose this job, but I can't ignore what I'm seeing." She waited in silence. No answer came. Just the weight of a decision she wasn't ready to make. Outside her window, the moon hung low and heavy. Inside her heart, a war was beginning. Between what she needed to survive and what she knew was right. She didn't know it yet, but that war was about to end because the next morning everything would change. The next morning came cold and quiet. Priscilla was sweeping the hallway when she heard it. A soft thud, then nothing. She stopped, listened. Another sound like a muffled cry. Her heart jumped. She followed the sound to the garden door. And there was Kelvin sitting on the stone bench, his small body hunched over, both hands pressed tight against his right ear. His face was twisted, tears streaming down his cheeks, but no sound came from his mouth. He was crying in complete silence. Priscilla dropped the broom and ran to him. She knelt in front of him, her hands shaking. "Kelvin, Kelvin, look at me." He opened his eyes. Red, wet, full of pain. She gently signed, "Your ear." He nodded, more tears falling. Priscilla's chest felt like it was being crushed. "Can I look?" she signed carefully. "I'll be gentle. I promise." He hesitated. Fear flickered across his face. But then he leaned forward. Trust. This child, who had been poked and prodded by doctors his whole life, trusted her. Priscilla swallowed hard. She tilted his head gently toward the morning light and looked. There it was, deep inside his ear canal. Something dark, dense, glistening like wet stone. Her breath stopped. It was bigger than before, clearer. How had every doctor missed this? How had every scan overlooked it? Priscilla's mind raced back to Marcus, her cousin, the blockage that had kept him deaf for 5 years. The simple procedure that changed his life. Her hands trembled. "Kelvin," she signed slowly. "There's something in your ear. Something that shouldn't be there." His eyes went wide. "We need to tell your father," she signed. Panic exploded across his face. His hands moved fast, frantic. "No, no doctors, please. They hurt me, always hurt, never help." Priscilla's heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. She understood. 9 years of specialists, 9 years of procedures, 9 years of pain with no relief. He'd learned that help meant suffering. She took his small hands in hers, looked into his eyes. "I would never hurt you," she whispered. "Never." He stared at her, and slowly his breathing calmed. But the fear didn't leave his eyes. Priscilla sat with him until the tears dried, until his hands stopped shaking. Then she walked back inside, her mind spinning. She knew what she'd seen. She knew what it meant. But what could she do? Tell Raymond? He'd call more specialists, the same ones who'd missed it for years. Do nothing? Watch this child suffer in silence? That night, Priscilla didn't sleep. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, her grandmother's voice echoing in her head. God doesn't always send help in fancy packages. Baby girl, sometimes he sends it through folks with nothing but willing hands. Priscilla closed her eyes. Her hands were willing. But was she brave enough to use them? 3 days passed. Priscilla couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, could barely think. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw it. That dark mass lodged deep, blocking everything. And Kelvin's face, the pain, the silent tears. On the third night, she sat on the edge of her bed, Bible open in her lap. But the words blurred. All she could see was Marcus, her cousin, deaf for 5 years, written off by every doctor, until someone finally looked. One procedure, one moment of attention, and his world exploded into sound. Priscilla's hands wouldn't stop shaking. She knew what she'd seen in Kelvin's ear. She knew. But who was she? A maid. No degree, no training, no right to touch that boy. If she was wrong, if she hurt him, she'd go to prison. If she was right, but Raymond found out she'd acted without permission, she'd lose everything. Her job, her income, her grandmother's care. "Lord," she whispered, voice cracking. "What do you want from me?" Silence, just the ticking of the clock. She thought about her brother, James, dead at 13. He'd been sick for months, complaining of pain, but they couldn't afford doctors, couldn't afford help. Priscilla watched him fade, watched him struggle to breathe, watched him try to speak words that wouldn't come. He died in her arms, silent, just like Kelvin's world. She'd promised herself that day. Promised God never again. She'd never stand by while a child suffered. But this was different. This wasn't her brother. This was a billionaire's son. And she was nobody. Priscilla closed the Bible, stood up, and walked to the window. The moon hung heavy outside, spilling silver light across the gardens. Somewhere in this mansion, a little boy was sleeping with pain in his ear and silence in his world. And she was the only one who'd noticed, the only one who'd seen. God, she breathed. "I'm scared. I'm so scared. But if this is what you're asking," her voice trailed off. She thought of her grandmother's words. The Lord doesn't call the equipped child. He equips the called. Priscilla wiped her eyes, made a decision. Tomorrow, if Kelvin showed pain again, she would act. She would trust what God had shown her, even if it cost her everything. She climbed into bed, heart pounding. Sleep wouldn't come. But peace did. A strange, heavy peace, the kind that comes when you've decided to step off the cliff and trust that God will catch you. Tomorrow was coming, and with it, the moment that would change everything. The next evening came too quickly. Raymond was away on business. The house was quiet. Priscilla was folding linens in the hallway when she heard it. The thump. Her heart stopped. She ran toward the sound. Kelvin lay on the hallway floor, curled up, both hands pressed to his ear, face contorted in agony. Tears streamed down his cheeks. Silent tears. Priscilla dropped to her knees beside him. "I'm here, baby. I'm here." She cradled his head gently, tilting it toward the lamplight. The dark mass was clearly visible now, swollen, pressing against his ear canal. Her hands trembled. This was it, the moment. She reached into her pocket, pulled out the sterilized tweezers she'd taken from the first aid kit 3 days ago, just in case. Her breath came in short bursts. "Lord," she whispered, "guide my hands, please." Kelvin looked up at her, eyes wide, scared, but trusting. "I won't hurt you," she signed with one hand. "I promise." He nodded slowly. Priscilla steadied herself, took a breath, and gently, carefully moved the tweezers into his ear canal. Her hand shook. She could feel it, the dark mass, dense and sticky. She hooked it gently, pulled. Resistance, her heart hammered. She pulled again, slow, careful, and then released. Something slid free. It landed in her palm. Dark, wet, biological, years of buildup that had stolen his hearing. Priscilla stared at it. Her stomach turned, but before she could react, Kelvin gasped. A real gasp, audible out. His hand flew to his ear. His eyes went wide. Wider than she'd ever seen them. He sat up suddenly, looking around the hallway like he'd never seen it before. Then he pointed at the grandfather clock on the wall. The one that had been ticking his whole life. The one he'd never heard. His mouth opened. A sound came out. Rough, broken, unpracticed, but real. Tick, he whispered. Priscilla's tears fell. Yes, baby. That's the clock. You can hear it. Kelvin's whole body trembled. He touched his throat, felt the vibration of his own voice. His eyes filled with wonder and fear and something else. His mouth opened again. One word. The first real word he'd ever spoken. Dad, Priscilla sobbed. She pulled him close, holding him as he shook as sounds flooded his world for the first time in 9 years. You can hear, she whispered into his hair. Thank you, Jesus. You can hear. Kelvin clung to her. And then footsteps heavy, fast, coming down the hallway. Priscilla looked up. Raymond Taylor stood in the doorway, face white as death, eyes locked on his son on the floor, and the blood on Priscilla's hands. What have you done? Raymond's voice shook the walls. He rushed forward, pushing Priscilla aside, grabbing Kelvin by the shoulders. What did she do to you? Kelvin flinched at the sound. So loud, so sharp. But then his mouth opened. Dad, I can hear you. Raymond froze. His entire body went rigid. What? Kelvin reached up and touched his father's face. Your voice? He whispered. Is that your voice? Raymond's legs buckled. But before the moment could breathe, before he could understand what was happening, his eyes landed on Priscilla's hands. The blood, the tweezers, the dark mass sitting in her palm. Terror overtook wonder. Security, he bellowed. Now 2 guards appeared instantly. Get her away from my son. Priscilla's heart shattered. Sir, please listen to me. I didn't hurt him. I helped him. She held out her palm, showing him the blockage. This was inside his ear. This is why he couldn't hear. I removed it. You're not a doctor. Raymond roared. You could have killed him. The guards grabbed Priscilla's arms. Kelvin screamed. Actually screamed. No, don't take her. The sound of his son's voice, loud, desperate, real, stopped Raymond cold. But the fear was too strong. Take her to the security office. Call the police. Priscilla didn't resist. As they dragged her away, she looked back at Kelvin. It's okay, she mouthed. You're going to be okay. Kelvin sobbed. Loud, messy sobs. The first sounds of grief he'd ever made. At the hospital, doctors swarmed around Kelvin. Tests, scans, examinations. Raymond paced the hallway, his mind spinning. His son was speaking, hearing, and responding to sounds. It was impossible. A nurse approached him. Mr. Taylor, the doctor needs to speak with you urgently. Raymond followed her into a small office. Dr. Matthews sat behind the desk, face grim. Mr. Taylor, I don't know how to say this. Just say it. The doctor slid a folder across the desk. This is your son's scan from 3 years ago. Raymond opened it. There, circled in red, was a notation. Dense obstruction noted in the right ear canal. Recommend immediate removal. Raymond's blood turned to ice. Someone saw this? Dr. Matthews nodded slowly. It appears so, but there's no follow-up, no procedure scheduled. Your account was flagged for ongoing treatment protocol. The words hit Raymond like a bullet. Ongoing treatment protocol. They'd known. They'd seen the blockage, and they'd left it there because his money was too good. Because his desperation was profitable. They kept my son deaf, Raymond whispered. On purpose. Dr. Matthews said nothing. But his silence said everything. Raymond's hands trembled. All those years, all those millions, all those specialists shaking their heads. They'd lied, and the one person who told the truth, who'd actually helped, was sitting in his security office waiting to be arrested. Raymond stood. "Where are you going?" the doctor asked. Raymond didn't answer. He had a maid to find and a lifetime of apologies to make. Priscilla sat alone in the security office, hands folded, head bowed. She wasn't praying for herself. She was praying for Kelvin, that his hearing would hold, that his father would understand, that the boy would finally know what it felt like to live in a world full of sound. The door opened. She looked up. Raymond Taylor stood there. But he wasn't the same man who dragged her away an hour ago. His eyes were red, his face broken. He looked like a man who had just watched his whole world crumble and rebuild in the same breath. Priscilla, her name spoken softly, almost reverently. She stood. "Mr. Taylor, I can explain." "Don't." He walked toward her slowly. "Don't explain. Don't apologize. Don't say a word." He stopped in front of her. And this billionaire, this man who controlled empires, fell to his knees. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry." Priscilla's breath caught. "The doctors knew," Raymond said, voice cracking. "They saw the blockage years ago. They left it there because my money was too good to cure." Tears streamed down his face. "I trusted them. I trusted credentials and degrees and expensive hospitals. I threw millions at my son's problem and never once stopped to actually look at him." He looked up at her. "But you did. You saw him. You saw his pain. You paid attention when no one else bothered." Priscilla's own tears fell. "I just loved him, sir. That's all." Raymond shook his head. "No, that's everything." He stood slowly. "I've spent 9 years trying to buy a miracle, and God sent one through the woman I hired to clean my mansion." Priscilla wiped her eyes. "God uses the willing, Mr. Taylor. That's what my grandmother always said." Raymond nodded. She was right. They walked back to Kelvin's hospital room together. The boy sat on the bed, headphones on, listening to music for the first time. His face was pure wonder. When he saw them, he pulled off the headphones and ran straight to Priscilla. He wrapped his arms around her waist. "Thank you," he said. His voice was rough, unpracticed, beautiful. Priscilla knelt down and held him tight. "You were always worth hearing, baby. Always." Kelvin pulled back and looked at his father. "Dad, I can hear your heart. It's beating fast." Raymond dropped to his knees and pulled his son close. For the first time in 9 years, Kelvin heard his father cry, and Priscilla, standing quietly beside them, finally let herself breathe. God had answered her prayer. Not with money, not with medicine, but with willing hands and a faithful heart. Sometimes that's all a miracle needs. Thank you so much, my amazing viewers, for watching this video. And to my returning subscribers, thank you for always coming back. Please don't forget to subscribe to this channel, like this video, share this video, and comment your opinion about this story. Bye, and I'll see you in my next video.